My friends, a better Australia means reviving the hopes of young Australians. Now, in a previous generation, many of us were lucky to buy a home at a young age after we'd worked hard, but that's not possible. That's not the reality for millions of young Australians now. As was pointed out to you earlier, some young Australians are putting off having children. Some parents are staying in the workforce longer. Indeed, some grandparents are, because even though they've saved hard and they've provisioned for their own retirement, they don't have enough money to help their kids with monthly mortgage repayments or to provide a deposit. Australians now well into their 30s are struggling still to buy a home. That's been the Labor legacy. These people have worked hard, they've saved diligently, and too many Australians have been locked into renting forever. Some are moving back into home with their parents, some with their grandparents. I will never accept a situation in our country where a young Australian can only afford to buy a house if they have the assistance of the bank of mum and dad. The Albanese government has made the housing crisis much worse over the last few years. In just 2 years, it brought in 1 million people through the migration program. That is 70% more people coming in through the migration program into our country than at any period in our country's history over that 2-year period. That is quite remarkable. But that's exactly what the government's done, and you knew nothing of it before the Prime Minister was elected. The Big Australia policy that Mr Albanese is rolling out, where 2 million people come in over 5 years, was never explained to the Australian people before the last election. Now, we have a wonderful migration success story in this country, but there's a big difference between controlled, planned and sustainable migration and uncontrolled, unplanned and unsustainable migration. In opening the migration floodgates, Labor has put more pressure on infrastructure, more pressure on services and certainly more pressure on housing. Owning a home is life-changing. And a home isn't just a financial asset. A home provides stability and security. And the benefits of home ownership compound. From the individual to the family, to the community, to the nation. And the Liberal Party has always been about home ownership, affordability, accessibility. And today I bring a message of hope to all Australians seeking to own a home of their own. I will be a Prime Minister who restores the dream of home ownership. Now, first, we'll ease the demand on housing. We'll ban foreign investors and temporary residents from purchasing existing homes for 2 years. We will lower the permanent migration program by 25% for 2 years, and we'll keep it sustainable ongoing. We'll bring the number of new foreign students commencing higher education in our country down by 30,000 each year. And our cap will focus on major metropolitan universities. With these measures, we anticipate that we will reduce net overseas migration in our first year by 100,000 relative to Labor, and will free up 100,000 homes in 5 years through those measures. Homes for young Australians. Rents have gone up by 18% under this government. People, Australian citizens, young and old, are being locked out of housing. Second, we'll increase housing supply. We'll invest $5 billion in essential infrastructure, working with councils, so that we can fund water and power and sewage and road upgrades. This will help get stalled housing projects off the ground and unlock up to 500,000 new homes. And our boost to apprenticeships will lift the number of workers with skills to build our homes each year. Third, we're going to provide the support Australians need for a home deposit. For a first home deposit, Labor wants you to lend taxpayers' money so the government has equity in your home. It wants to make you dependent on rather than independent from the government. Now, I say to the Australian people today that the Coalition has a much better plan. We will allow Australians to access up to $50,000 of their super towards a deposit for their first home. That allows home ownership earlier. And as the asset grows in value, as your home grows in value, so does your ultimate asset position as you get later in life. As you grow older and can put that money back into super when you dispose of that house, You can end up with a house and a good super balance as well. It's an either-or proposition under the Labor Party. Your super ultimately is your money. It's not the government's money. And we'll work with the prudential regulators to ease rigid and overly strict lending criteria. And that will result in tens of thousands more Australians being able to get a home loan. And today I announce a new policy for first home buyers who purchase a newly built property to live in. A coalition government will allow you to deduct interest payments on the first $650,000 of a mortgage against your taxable income. We will allow these deductions for 5 years, provided you continue to live in that home for that period. This policy will be available to individuals with a taxable income of $175,000 or less and joint applicants earning a combined income of $250,000 or less. When Australians have heard me say that I want to be the Prime Minister for home ownership, for home affordability, for home accessibility, I mean it. And when the coalition provides leadership to this country, we can transform people's lives in a positive way. I'm not going to allow Anthony Albanese's trashing of the housing market to continue. I am going to make sure, we are going to make sure as a coalition government that we can provide support to young people. It's a different proposition today, as I said before, that it has been for previous generations. The disposable income that's required to service a mortgage, the money that's required to put a deposit down, it's a very different proposition than it was a generation or two ago. And so the announcement that we make today reflects the reality for young Australians. So we will be a government that restores the dream of home ownership for young Australians so that they can get onto the property ladder and that they can have that security as they raise a family, as they use that house to anchor a small business growth, somebody who has the option now available to them to start a small business in their back bedroom or in their garage. That's what home ownership can mean for millions of Australians, and it is lost under this government. It will be restored under a coalition government that I lead.